Tigers turned the page to South Carolina, and couldn't come soon enough because losing sucks. Losing going into your open date really sucks because then you just chew on that loss for 2 weeks. Had LSU been preparing for another game this past weekend, yes, everyone would have complained about the loss on Monday, probably would have bled into Tuesday, but by the time you would have got to midweek, it would have been full throttle toward the game that Saturday. But we ended up really just divulging into this this conversation about LSU and the offense and what ails it. And I think so many people over the course of a week have compounded the issues to forget the fact that LSU right now, after some upsets, is up to 11th in the country. They're 4-1. You beat Clemson, and say what you will about Clemson, you were still an underdog in that game. So you split 2 games as an underdog, and you're going to be favored in your next 3. And if you win those and you end up going into your second open date before November, you'll have 4 games to play. You'll be favored heavily at home against Kentucky and against Arkansas and Western Kentucky. And you'll have road games against Bama and Oklahoma. And if you split those 2, you're 10-2 and you're in the playoff. Now, you may laugh and roll your eyes and say LSU can't take anything for granted. And I agree with you. If they go play the way they did against Ole Miss, they'll get beat again multiple times. It'll be a really disappointing season. But you're still sitting there right now at 4-1. You're ranked 11th in the country, and everything is still in front of you. So let's see if they're healthy coming out of the bye and how they may look this week with South Carolina coming in. And, of course, the questions had to start with the health of a lot of key players, and that was what Brian Kelly clarified on Monday.
I think Weston is a go. Caden is a go. Nuss is a go. Paul is questionable, and Anderson is a probable.
Obviously, a few things there. Nuss is going to be at the center of everyone's conversation, but also the injuries on the offensive line. So Weston Davis, your starting right tackle, is a go. Garrett Nussmeier's a go. Caden Durham's a go. That's awesome. Paul Mabenga, questionable. Aaron Anderson, probable. So, listen, when you're 121st in the country and running the football, having your starting running back and potentially 2 starters on the offensive line returning, it would stand to reason that that's going to help you. It would only be a positive having those guys back. But everybody wants to talk about Nusmeier. And it's one of the things that Brian Kelly said, remember, after Florida, was that they were going to shut him down. Remember, this was not new. After Florida, that Monday after Florida, Brian Kelly said they were going to shut Nuss down during the open date, and that only then would he be able to get fully healthy. Well, Kelly elaborated a bit more on shutting Nuss down here in this bye week. It's 12.
He's feeling better and better. We didn't do a lot with him last week. We wanted to use that as a recovery week for him. Obviously he did a lot with VR. He stayed involved in everything that we're doing, run game checks, blitz checks, things of that nature. But we just cut him down from, the throwing. And obviously we're going to go out today. We'll get a bonus day in terms of being able to practice today. So our expectations after talking to him is he feels good and he's ready to go.
So I know at this point through 5 games, if you are doubting Nussmeier's health, nothing Brian Kelly or anyone says is going to convince you otherwise. You're going to have to see it. That's fine. I'm not here to convince. This thing has been litigated plenty publicly. I'm not going to convince you of anything. But Kelly effectively said, look, they shut him down. He didn't throw during the open date to let him heal. Hopefully more and more. Did a lot with VR. Went through the mental reps. So let's see how healthy from 2 weeks from Ole Miss to South Carolina, how healthy he can be and how much more efficient, effective this offense can be. One more, Kelly was asked to follow up about what exactly Nuss was doing.
Yeah, Nuss was involved in the entire practice. We just didn't have him throw. He threw with a towel, which is just getting the motions and keeping the arm ready. But he did essentially all of the mental work for what we had for the days on the field.
So that's the good news, okay? So Nuss, what everybody wanted to hear. They shut him down for the week, went through the mental reps, should be good, physically ready to go. My assertion all along has been the sluggish offense is less about Garrett Nussmeier being injured to whatever degree. Not here to litigate that again. It's been more the fact that your offensive line has been so poor. Brian Kelly said it. You saw 86% drop 8 against Ole Miss. 86% of their snaps, Ole Miss dropped 8 into coverage, rush 3. You still couldn't run the ball, didn't try to run the ball, and you couldn't protect Garrett Nussmeier. They're getting pressure with 3. They're dropping 8 into coverage. Like, that's a problem. Your offensive line has to be better. And Brian Kelly talked about, I thought the most interesting thing here with respect to these injuries is what they may do. Because, remember, Weston Davis missed the Ole Miss game. He was concussed in pregame, so Carius Curne starts at right tackle. You didn't have DJ Chester. Remember, he was suspended for the first half of the game. And then you lose Paul Mabenga mid-game, or in the third quarter, due to the ankle sprain, and Cohen Eccles played the rest of the game at left guard. So Chester didn't go in. You ended up playing true freshman Curne and redshirt freshman Eccles at right guard and left tackle, respectively, for the remainder of the game. Now, Carius Curne played really well. He was your second highest graded offensive lineman for the game against Ole Miss. And Brian Kelly was asked if there's competition now it's 18. If Weston Davis coming back, if there's competition there with Curne.
You know, Weston Davis obviously couldn't play in the Ole Miss game, but look, he's got some snaps underneath him. Carius is there. If Weston needs a blow, we can also look at Carius inside at the guard position now that, Paul is banged up. So we've got some flexibility with Carius to move him into the guard position or the tackle position.
Now that part right there, the end of that is the most important part, where Brian Kelly says we have flexibility to move Carius into the guard position or at tackle. Remember, we have not seen Carius Curne play guard up until this point. Every snap he has taken has been at tackle. Remember, all throughout camp, he was working as the number 2 left tackle behind Tyree Adams. 12 days before the opener, we saw him taking reps with the ones at right tackle in place of Weston Davis. Weston Davis gets concussed, isn't available. DJ Chester not available for the first half. Curne starts at right tackle. Also, remember, and I asked Brian Kelly this, whenever the second half begins and Chester's available, they didn't put DJ Chester in at right tackle. They stuck with Curne at right tackle. Here was Brian Kelly Monday when I asked him why.
Because what we saw in the first half, essentially, I think if there were major issues, Matt, Brad and I would have probably made a decision there to make the change. But we felt like Carius was giving us good energy. He was protecting our edge really well in the passing game. There were a couple of mistakes inside out, which we expected that was going to happen. But by and large, we felt like let's let the young guy play. And that was kind of our sense.
Last week, when Brian Kelly met with reporters, he drew a comparison with Curne to Emory Jones as a freshman. And if you remember what happened, Emory didn't start the first game. He came in rotation in the second game. I believe that it was against Southern in the second game. And by the third game, which I think was Mississippi State, he was starting. And it just got to the point where they looked around and realized, look, man, he's going to make some mistakes, but he's athletic, he's physical, and you'd rather him make those mistakes, learn, and just keep getting better because the ceiling's so high. And they got to the point where it was eventually just the reality that he was one of your best 5 offensive linemen. And I kind of get the sense that that's where they're trending right now with Carius Curne. For what it's worth, on the season so far, if you look at blocking grades through 5 games on the season, Josh Thompson, like pass blocking, Thompson, Mabenga, Curne. That's on the season so far. It's just, and I know it hasn't been great at times. It's actually been pretty bad at times across the board for the offensive line. I think aside from Braylon Moore has been your best guy. You're looking for your best 5. And I think what we're seeing is Curne is sort of vying for that spot to be considered among the best 5. And maybe that's Weston Davis's spot at right tackle. Maybe that's Paul Mabenga's spot at left guard. I don't know, but I do believe this weekend will be very telling because they always say actions speak louder than words. Brian Kelly can tell us there's no competition at right tackle. It's Weston Davis's job. They can tell us they like Curne at tackle instead of guard, whatever. But Chester is the 6th man. He's the first one up at any spot. When you had the opportunity to put Chester in on the road against Ole Miss, you didn't. You stuck with Curne. That is way more illustrative than anything he says. So Carius Curne this week, I think this week and moving forward becomes a fascinating figure on this team because it is very clear your weakest unit is your offensive line. It is your worst unit on the team. And I don't even know that that's debatable. And if you're looking for how do you improve it, well, if the young 5-star can get in there and start moving bodies and give you some athleticism, either at guard or tackle, and make you better, you're going to make that move. And I do think before this season's over, we're going to see Carius Curne become a starter on this offensive line. The question is where. And Brian Kelly saying they have flexibility to play him at guard or tackle is telling that they're considering ways to get him on the field. And as I understand, Paul Mabenga's ankle sprain, and Brian Kelly said today that he's questionable. I was told last week that Mabenga's ankle sprain is maybe a little severe, and that of all the guys injured, that's the one they're most concerned about being ready for South Carolina. And if you're looking going on, if you don't have Mabenga, do you want Eccles? Do you want Curne? Eccles has more reps at guard. Curne's the better player with a higher upside. Something to watch as we go through this week is what they do with Carius Curne and across that offensive line. We'll, of course, follow it right here. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.